After hearing of a new Texas abortion law, marches are being held across the country in protest. I'm Bronte Sorotsky with how that's happening here in Joplin.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Well, thanks so much for tuning in on this Saturday evening. I'm Mike Mahoney. Plenty of people gathered in front of Ascension Via Christi in Pittsburgh this afternoon to protest the hospital's vaccine mandate. Back in late July, the hospital network announced that it would require its associates to be vaccinated against COVID-19. In a statement announcing their vaccine mandate, Ascension Via Christi said, quote, "This decision is rooted in our mission commitment to leading with quality and safety as a healthcare provider and as a Catholic ministry. Ensuring we have a culture of safety for our associates, patients, and communities is foundational to our work." One of the protest organizers explains why so many people are opposed to the mandate.
We have come together and asked people to recognize that we have a right of choice, a right to decide whether or not to have the vaccine. We want to share who we are and our stories about why we're here, and just let people know that we feel that the right should be to choose and not be forced or mandated upon us.
Organizers said they would protest rain or shine and did so until about 3 this afternoon. Protests all over the country are taking place today in opposition to the new Texas abortion law. It's the most restrictive one in the country. In Joplin, a protest was held along 7th and Range Line. KOAM's Bronte Sorotsky spoke with Missouri women that worry what happened in Texas could happen here.
It's a nightmare right now.
Across the country, people are marching to oppose the new Texas abortion law. Here in Joplin, that's happening at 7th and Range Line.
Stand up, fight back!
When the Texas ban came, and then we saw the need to march nationwide.
Jamie Lindsay, the editor-in-chief of Julie Joplin Media, says she organized the march in Joplin to bring awareness to the lack of abortion resources in Missouri.
There's only one place in the state that you can get an abortion at, and that's in St. Louis.
That's a 4 to 5 hour drive from Joplin each way. And even when you get there, it's not an easy process.
There's already a 72-hour hold for abortion, so you have to basically travel twice or stay in St. Louis for a few days.
With access already restrictive, Joplin residents are worried it could get even worse.
We anticipate that they will continue to try to do similar things of what they've seen done in Texas.
Protesters say it's about a woman's right to choose.
No uterus, no opinion!
Women in Missouri, individuals who support women in Missouri, don't believe it's the government's right to make these decisions for our body.
I have no man, no woman, and no government, because it's my body and my choice.
Now, those in favor of accessible abortion are trying to bring awareness to the lack of services, and that action shouldn't stop at these rallies.
What we can do is just continue to speak our voices, continue to push this reproductive freedom that we should have access to, and obviously call our senators, call our representatives.
Counter-protesters against abortion showed up as well, but declined to speak with KOAM. In Joplin, Bronte Sorotsky, KOAM News.
Looks like both those protests were dealing with some wet weather today, but let's get more from meteorologist Nick Kelly. Nick.
Yeah, everybody had to deal with rain for today, Mike. Fortunately, that kept temperatures in control, especially when you consider we've been quite warm over the past several days. With 66 this morning, and only warming up to 76 degrees, but that's actually where we should be topping out at this point in the month of October. We've been keeping an eye on some scattered showers throughout the course of the evening, but this activity is on the downswing as we go through the rest of the night, not just because of a passing front at the surface, but our upper level wave wanting to continue its journey north and east as we go into tomorrow. While that northeastward journey with that upper level low might mean a dry start to your Sunday with lows around 60, the backside of that could try to bring a random shower our way during the afternoon, but still not looking bad temperature-wise, Mike, with most of us in the mid-70s. We'll break down the rest of the week here in a bit.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you, Nick. The city of NEOSHO held its annual fall festival this afternoon despite the rainy weather. Around 140 vendors set up shop along the square, providing a number of unique items for folks to browse through and buy. Of course, food was also available from several local eateries. There was also some live music, a history alley, and even a car show for folks to enjoy. But that didn't stop the rain from causing a few concerns.
I was a little worried. We were supposed to have bounce houses. They weren't able to come because of the rain. So I was a little worried that more people would cancel, but everybody's come out, and I think everybody's doing well on sales, and it seems like there's I mean, people at every single booth looking at things.
And this fall festival has been going on for about 60 years now. Over in Miami, organizers of the 8th annual Miami Festival plan to head for the rain and move the event inside the Civic Center. There a number of vendors set up shop to offer a variety of wares to both residents and visitors. This year marked the first time that live music was featured, and it wasn't just performances, it was a band competition.
Miami is a musical town. We have a lot of artists that have originated from here, and so we are basically, all of us are working together to make Miami a music industry community.
There were 2 events scheduled for the festival that have been rescheduled for later this year. Porch Fest is back in the North Heights neighborhood of Joplin's historic Murfreesburg district. Porch Fest isn't a celebration of porches, rather it's a celebration from people's porches. There were artisans, food trucks, and best of all, a number of bands jamming out for 4-staters. Bands set up on porches throughout the neighborhood, offering a walking concert for those in attendance. Porch Fest was started back in 2017. Heading north now to Pittsburgh, the Kids Garage Sale took place inside the Lincoln Center over at Lincoln Park. Kids, with the help of their families, set up tables with a number of items they were ready to part with. One of the kids KOM spoke with says she didn't bring anything to the sale that she wanted to keep around, just the cool stuff that other kids might like that she doesn't need anymore.
We're selling fidgets, my old toys, clothes, shoes, and stuffed animals and baby dolls. Well, I sold this really Bobby boat for $5. And it's vintage. I didn't think it was going to sell.
Not too bad. The sale was held today from 9 to noon. And it is now time for us to honor one of our many 4-state heroes. And tonight, we recognize Elmer DeGraff of Carl Junction, Missouri. DeGraff served as a private in the U.S. Army, and he fought in World War II. Thank you, sir, for your courage and for fighting for freedom. For more information on all our 4-state heroes, or to nominate your own, just log on to komnewsnow.com.
Well, it's about time rain chances finally worked back in, but to try to put a damper on some outdoor plans at certain times throughout the day. You can see the time-lapse of indigo sky outside of Seneca, Missouri showed maybe a little bit of fog because of all the rain that we saw, not only just yesterday, but certainly taking us through our Saturday. But we did have pockets of dry time and at least a few peaks of the sun to try and warm things up. And we'll take a double check on how temperatures fared today in just a bit. But first, there was one wave that worked on through this morning, rain and thunderstorms. Then we had this evening batch of scattered showers, which are on the downswing as we continue deeper into the overnight hours. But for today alone, we averaged out the entire area just over ½ inch of rain, but you can easily see where the bulk of the rain fell along and south and east of the Interstate 44 corridor. But ever since the rain chances picked up since Wednesday, we've averaged out just about 1.2 inches. And again, the heaviest along and south of the Interstate 44 corridor. Fortunately, though, even though we had to start the evening out with these scattered showers, these are on the way out, which means we will trend certainly a bit drier for your Sunday to wrap up this weekend. As far as temperatures go, the rain this morning knocked us back mainly into the mid-60s. Most spots around 65, 66 degrees on the average. And even though we got a little bit of a break in the action during the hottest part of the day, you can't even call it hot because look at these, upper 60s in our northern counties, lower to middle 70s across the rest of the region. So not a good warm up for today, but I think we can do a little better with some returning sun as we go into your Sunday. So let's break down our surface setup here. To start off our look at the wide view of the Skywatch Storm Tracker, we have at the surface our cold front continuing its journey off toward the east and southeast from the region, and upstairs at the jet stream level, here's that stubborn upper level low, the same one that was stuck in the desert Southwest throughout much of this week, but it's on the move. And again, this is what's going to cause these rain chances that we had to start this evening out to wind on down as we go throughout the course of the night. And we'll go from mostly cloudy skies to at least partly cloudy skies as we get your Sunday morning started, with most of us right around 60. But on the backside of this wave, though, You can see how we'll see some partly sunny skies for tomorrow and maybe the slimmest chance of a random shower, let's say along and east of 49. That's going to be the best shot for anything to fire up. But if anything can fire up, not on the scale of what we saw for today. Again, maybe a lone shower for the afternoon. 60 in the morning, 71 by noon. Afternoon highs right around 76. The wave will send some clouds from the north our way for Monday morning, but that's all it does. We'll call it partly to mostly sunny Monday with highs topping out in the upper 70s. But this upper low, even though it may look like it wants to continue east, gets cut off from the jet. So this is going to wander around as we go through Tuesday and Wednesday. And you can see what the end result is on the 7-day forecast here. Slight chances for isolated thunderstorms Tuesday and Wednesday. Again, not a washout like we had throughout the start of this weekend. But 76 for Sunday, 79 Monday. We'll stay in the mid to upper 70s Tuesday and Wednesday, Mike, before we head right back into the 80s. But at least we'll be dry going into next weekend.
You know, Nick, I felt like this weekend was the first true weekend that really felt like fall. Could those 90-degree days be in the rearview mirror?
Believe it or not, I had a high of 92 set for Saturday, but thankfully the numbers trended downward. I'm personally hoping we're done with the 90s, but it's definitely going to feel like fall to start this week ahead out.
All right, fingers crossed. Thanks so much, Nick Kelly. And when we return, we are learning more about COVID-19 booster shots and California's new vaccine mandate.
New research suggests booster shots could be more urgent than originally thought. I'm Christina Coleman. I'll have the details coming up.
Welcome back. California announces one of its boldest vaccination dates to date as the U.S. surpasses a grim milestone in its fight to end the pandemic. Fox News' Christina Coleman has the latest from Los Angeles.
California set to become the first state to mandate vaccination shots for all public and private school students ages 12 to 17. The mandate would go into effect for students in grades K through 12 after the FDA fully approves the vaccine for students in those age groups.
We want to get this thing done. We want to end this pandemic. We are all exhausted by it. And the purpose of this is to continue to lead in that space.
So far, parents are split on whether it's the right approach.
There's a lot of other vaccines that are already mandated. I feel like this vaccine has been tested very rigorously, and I think it's a good idea.
My kids were like, what are we going to do, Mom? I'm like, I'm going to pull you out of school. We're going to homeschool, and we're going to figure this out.
The push to speed up vaccinations comes as the U.S. surpasses 700,000 deaths from coronavirus, the most reported of any country in the world. The White House working to mitigate the spread of this virus, saying part of the solution lies in getting booster shots to those who need them.
Nearly 2 million booster shots in the first week. That's a very strong start.
And new research suggests they're needed. A new study found antibodies from the Pfizer vaccine disappear within 7 months. Some school districts already have the vaccine mandate in place, including LA Unified, the second largest school district in the country. Its mandate is set to go into effect in January for students 12 and older. In Los Angeles, Christina Coleman, Fox News.
A New York Times report says Tyson Foods now has about 91% of its workforce vaccinated. The company has doubled its numbers of vaccinated employees since August. This development could aid in the output of meat products, which have hit supply chain shortages during shortfalls during labor shortages. Tyson has a workforce of roughly 120,000 people. Office workers were required to be fully vaccinated by Friday following the company's August mandates. Plant workers have until November 1st to be fully vaccinated. Tyson employees receive a $200 bonus for vaccination compliance. When we return, we have got an update on Afghanistan. And it's becoming clear that following the Taliban takeover, malnutrition has become a major problem for the Afghan people. And you'll learn why right after this short break. A starvation crisis is happening in Afghanistan following the reduction of international humanitarian aid in response to the Taliban takeover. Fox News' Trey Yanks has that story.
The Afghan people are in desperate need of support. With the Taliban in control, the international community has reduced the amount of aid flowing into this country. The consequences are already starting to play out on the population here, especially its most vulnerable residents. I do need to warn our viewers, the following images may be considered disturbing. Zaytullah is 3 months old and weighs less than 4 pounds. The young Afghan is severely malnourished and without treatment will die. He's all that Amir Gullah has left. She sold her daughter when the family needed money for food. The girl was then killed.
I have nothing. I don't have a brother, I don't have a sister, I don't have a mother. I'm just alive for my son. I can sacrifice myself for my son. One day he will grow up and he can help me.
This tragic story of one family is not unique. The people of Afghanistan are suffering. Half of the population relies on international assistance to survive. With the Taliban in control, many of the traditional aid pathways are shut, and hospitals are running out of supplies to treat these vulnerable little kids. Here at a children's hospital in the Afghan capital of Kabul, kids are being treated for malnutrition. Just last month, 5 died here, waiting for international aid to arrive.
We need a lot of help. We only have a small amount of supplies for kids, but a lot of patients. We can only take in emergency cases.
The images there speak for themselves. UNICEF warns this year 1 million Afghan children face starvation. In Kabul, Trey Yingst, Fox News.
The Department of Homeland Security is not denying a report that hundreds of the 53,000 Afghans being housed on U.S. military bases have left the installations. Reuters is reporting that about 700 Afghans are no longer staying on the bases, prompting concern about the refugees' medical status as they try to take their place in American society. Fox News' Lucas Tomlinson has more from Washington.
There are now over 53,000 Afghan refugees spread out over 8 bases in the United States. As you mentioned, some 700 have already decided to leave on their own. The Department of Homeland Security says they are not breaking any laws by doing so. DHS did not refute the Reuters story, only saying if Afghans choose to leave the bases, they are responsible for completing any medical requirements on their own and may forfeit other benefits. Afghan refugees were only supposed to be on the bases for days or weeks. Now that mission has been extended for months, according to the top general for U.S. forces in North America.
We're prepared to be here as long as we need to conduct this mission. That's best addressed by DHS, the lead federal agency. We stand ready to support. We'll be ready if we need to support through the winter months and into the spring.
There are still 14,000 Afghan refugees at bases overseas, including at Ramstein in Germany, waiting for flights to the U.S. that have been suspended for weeks because of a measles outbreak. Now General Van Herk says all Afghans have been vaccinated for measles, and those flights should resume soon. He says 84% of Afghan refugees have received the coronavirus vaccine. Fox News asked the general why Afghans were fully vaccinated against measles, but not for the coronavirus. He says he has a bigger worry.
I wanted to remind Lucas is that the COVID positivity rate is 0.4%, less than 1%. And so, we haven't had significant challenges. I will tell you that the task force's concern is primarily flu outbreak at this point, and we're working hard to get the flu vaccine as well across all of the Afghans.
Last week, a female U.S. Army soldier at Fort Bliss in Texas says she was assaulted by a group of male Afghan refugees. 2 other Afghans were arrested at Fort McCoy in Wisconsin, one for allegedly assaulting a child, the other for assaulting his wife. In Washington, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
A giant moving puppet has found its way to Germany. The more than 11-foot tall puppet named Little Amal represents a young Syrian refugee girl who is traveling through Europe and looking for safety, as well as her mom, who disappeared after going to search for food. The puppet started its walking journey in Turkey at the end of July. After traveling through Greece and Rome, Little Amal and her puppeteers hopped on a boat and traveled to France. The puppet was named Amal because that name means hope in Arabic. Right after this short break, we have got some news for the diet soda drinkers in the audience. A new study from the University of Southern California says a certain ingredient in diet drinks could be sabotaging your attempts at weight loss. Details are next. Welcome back to your news at 9. You may soon notice that the pace of mail delivery is slowing down, and that could be happening across the country. That's because the U.S. Postal Service is implementing new service standards. The changes include cuts to post office hours and longer delivery times for certain mail. The Postal Service is also hiking the price of commercial and retail package shipments for the holiday season. Diet drinks intended to help curb cravings and keep the weight off may be having the opposite effect, particularly for women. And it turns out one ingredient may be adding to the problem. Researchers at the University of Southern California say in a new study that diet soda and drinks containing the artificial sweetener sucralose may contribute to increased food cravings and obesity, especially in women. Well, stay right there. We've got a lot more news headed your way, as well as another look at your weather with meteorologist Nick Kelly and your KOAM Sports Report with Sports Director Jacob Leonard. That's all coming up right here in your KOAM News at 9 on Fox 14.
The FBI ramps up their investigation as the manhunt for Brian Laundrie intensifies. I'm Jonathan Seri in Northport, Florida. I'll have details coming up.
The fuel shortage in the United Kingdom has become so serious the military is getting involved. The UK's Defence Secretary announced that military personnel will be deployed across the country to provide extra support as a precaution. He says more than 200 military personnel will help relieve the fuel supply shortages that have resulted in empty pumps and long lines at filling stations. The government insists that the situation is improving, but the UK's Petrol Retailers Association says fuel supplies are still a problem and may get even worse in parts of the country. The fuel crisis has been attributed to Brexit, which caused tens of thousands of drivers to leave the UK and go back to their homes in the European Union. It's also being blamed on a series of lockdown restrictions that have led to difficulties in training and testing new drivers to replace those who left. The Moab Police Department is facing questions regarding a suspected domestic incident between Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito weeks before Petito's disappearance. Fox News' Jonathan Seri has the latest from Northport, Florida.
The Laundrie family home was relatively quiet Friday morning after FBI agents returned to the residence Thursday to collect personal items belonging to Brian Laundrie. Task force agents also examined a camper that was parked in the driveway of the family residence. The FBI says the Laundrie family's camping activities following the disappearance of Gabby Petito have become a crucial part of the ongoing investigation.
You're going to jail!
Meanwhile, a neighbor of the Laundries is facing charges after confronting a group of protesters. 48-year-old Angelo Zappacosta is accused of punching a demonstrator who was handing out posters of Brian Laundrie on his property.
You know, I'm sorry that I took attention away from, the true front, which is justice for Gabby, the real issue. Again, it's been 2 weeks of just a circus and nonsense.
So there's two people that came to us and told us that they saw him hit you.
And newly released body cam footage by the Moab Police Department shows an emotional Petito speaking with police during a suspected domestic incident weeks before her disappearance.
Don't worry, just be honest.
He grabbed my face, just like this. He didn't hit me in the face, he didn't punch me in the face or anything.
Did he slap your face or what?
Well, he grabbed me with his nail.
The department says they are conducting an in-depth investigation into their officers' handling of the domestic dispute. The Moab police chief has taken a leave of absence, but it's unclear whether it's related to this incident. In Northport, Florida, Jonathan Seri, Fox News.
We'll be right back with meteorologist Nick Kelly and another look at your weather. Stay tuned.
It was certainly nice. The temperatures felt like fall today, but it had to come at the expense of quite a bit of rain chances that passed on through today. In fact, you can even argue ever since we got the weekend started. We saw some of that rain work over in and around the Indigo Sky Casino Resort outside of Seneca, Missouri. But you can also see throughout this time lapse that we actually had pockets of dry time in between all these rain chances. And even though it was nice to see that, didn't result in much of a warm up in terms of temperatures. We'll break down the numbers as we roll along, but there went one batch of rain and storms late last night into this morning. And then we were dealing with this evening's batch of scattered showers and a couple of thunderstorms, but that activity thankfully is on the downswing as we continue through the rest of the night. Just today alone, the entire area picked up 0.6 of an inch of rainfall, at least that's how the amounts averaged out. But you can easily see where the hot spots were. From about Stockton Lake down to 44 and along the south of the interstate, that's where the brunt of the rainfall fell. And that even applies to the Wednesday. Since Wednesday, ever since these rain chances started to ramp up along the south of I-44, that's where the bulk of the 1.2 inch average rain amounts fell. And you can easily see those pockets trying to push 3 to almost 5 inches of rain. Even though we had scattered showers to get this evening started, you can see how they're all rotating off toward the east and northeast. That is going to lead to a quiet night ahead of us. But again, these rain chances and a lot of cloud cover too meant temperatures didn't have much wiggle room in terms of warming things up. We started out in the lower to middle 60s this morning across much of the region. We only made it into the mid-70s this afternoon, even though, again, it was nice that it felt like fall. But even though we're getting rid of these rain chances as we go into the overnight, some of this cloud cover is going to hold tough while we break down the rest of our setup here. You can see this front at the surface, this cold front, continuing its push off toward the east and southeast. And upstairs at the jet stream level, this is the main reason why we had our rain chances today and why they're just going to temporarily subside through the overnight. This upper level low that was in the desert southwest is continuing its journey toward the east and northeast. That is going to help us out in terms of our Sunday. We'll get things off to a dry start as overnight lows drop back near 60. But on the backside of this wave, additional moisture will bring partly sunny skies for much of the day tomorrow. And you can see during the afternoon, maybe a random shower or two, maybe a random rumble of thunder. That's about it, and nowhere near on the scale of what we had to put up with for much of this weekend in terms of coverage. 60 in the morning, 71 by noon, highs around 76 with a northwest breeze behind that passing cold front. We'll keep quiet for Sunday night, but here comes another band of clouds Monday. That's all it'll do, really. Nothing to worry about there, as highs top out in the mid to upper 70s for Monday. This upper low, believe it or not, gets cut off from the jet, so it's going to wander close by for Tuesday and Wednesday, maybe giving us a few isolated thunderstorms during the middle of the week. But the jet stream picks it back up as we go toward the end of the week, and we'll have to keep an eye on this building upper level ridge. At some point, it may try to bring highs back near 90, but I'm keeping them officially out of the forecast, even though we are going to warm back up by the end of next week. 76 tomorrow, 79 on Monday, mid to upper 70s pretty much the norm through Wednesday, Mike, before we head back near 80 on Thursday and into the upper 80s as we get into next weekend.
All right, you know, Nick, I think I heard you say that we may not be done with those warm temps. What could the future hold?
Well, hopefully that upper level ridge that'll build in by next weekend doesn't get any stronger. If it does, I'll have to bump highs back above 90 on Saturday. But for now, I'm seeing mainly 70s and 80s for highs. Warm, but nothing too terrible.
All right, sounds like a plan. Thanks so much, Nick Kelly. And Nick, check this out. An erupting volcano continues to have residents on high alert on the Spanish island of La Palma. It's been nearly 2 weeks since the volcano first started erupting. The lava flow has not only destroyed hundreds of homes and buildings, but it's also forced thousands of people to evacuate. As some lava rivers started reaching and spilling into the Atlantic Ocean, local authorities warned residents to keep their windows shut, as a mix of toxic gases could be released when the lava comes into contact with water. La Palma's government says they are continuously monitoring air quality along the shoreline for health threats. All right, stick around, sports fans. You are just 2 minutes away from your KOAM Sports Report with Jacob Leonard. That is next.
Well, today is rivalry day for Pitt State and Missouri Southern football. The two teams meet this afternoon in Joplin in the latest installment of the Miners Bowl. The Gorillas have won 6 straight against Southern and 25 of the last 26. The Lions up 3-0. Carthage product Colton Winder there gets the interception in the end zone for Missouri Southern. Second quarter, we get the game's first touchdown here. Max Sexton to Jalen Martin. He does the rest for the 17-yard score. Gorillas go to half up 7-6. Now the two teams trade field goals in the third. Nick Williams for the Lions. Other side, Cross Holmes for the Gorillas. PSU up 10-9 going to the fourth. Now in the final quarter, Josh Mercer gets through for the 4-yard touchdown. The Lions back in front 16-10 with the extra point. But Pitt State responds. After a big return, Sexton out to Christian Carter. A couple moves and he's in for the 15-yard touchdown. Gorillas go back up 20-16. And the final Lions drive, 4th down, PJ Sarwinski. The Galena product there to make the play. Pitt State survives against Missouri Southern today, 20-16.
We did not back down from a challenge. We did not back down from them. We drove up and down the field. We had such success. I don't know what we ended up with rushing yards, but we controlled the clock. We moved the ball. We played. I thought we were more physical than them at times. And so now, man, if you turn those field goals into touchdowns, the ball game's different.
Yeah, I was happy with the way our defense played other than some of those penalties, but they certainly kept us in the football game the entire 60 minutes, and we needed them because we weren't playing very well at all on the offensive side.
Anytime you win in a close one, it shows just that you got grit. You have grit on your team and you know how to win. Great teams, good teams do that. They know how to win in the end, even when you're struggling.
The NEO Golden Norsemen picked up their first win of the season last week. NEO topped Navarro 39-15 on homecoming weekend to get to 1-2 through 3 games. Now the Norsemen at home once again today, trying to get to 500 against Ellsworth. Down by an early field goal. Check this play out. NEO about to cross the goal line, but the ball comes out. Takes a wild bounce backwards. Norseman recovers it. NEO gets another shot at it. This time, Perry Olson hands it off to Jamani Jones. He's got a clear shot to the end zone. Norsemen take a 6-3 lead. Under a minute to play in the half, Josh Bauer keeps it, fights his way through for the score. Ellsworth goes into half with a lead, but NEO rallies and wins a tight one, 27-24. In the Big 12, the Kansas State Wildcats host 6th-ranked Oklahoma today, aiming to hand the Sooners their first loss of the season. That one is final. It was a good one, but Oklahoma comes out on top by 6, 37-31. Well, today is a big opportunity for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Arkansas hits the road today for a top 10 matchup against Georgia, aiming to stay unbeaten. Now, the Hogs ranked 8th in the country. Georgia is number 2. Zamir White gives Georgia the early lead. 3-yard rushing touchdown for White. The Dogs up 7. Later in the first, Kendall Milton adds a 1-yard score. Arkansas now in a 14-point hole. This thing got out of hand pretty quickly. Razorbacks punting, but Dan Jackson there for the block. White recovers it in the end zone. That is a touchdown. Georgia has the first 21 points of the game. They didn't stop there. Here in the fourth, White again finding the end zone. Georgia shuts out Arkansas today 37-0. One more out of the SEC. Mizzou hosts Tennessee, trying to pick up their first league win. Volunteers, though, put 60 on them. Tigers fall in this one 62-24. 683 total yards of offense today for Tennessee. That's a look at sports. We're back with more news after this.
Welcome back. The pandemic put many medical procedures on hold last year, leading to concerns about organ donations and transplant surgery delays. But now, some doctors say those worries were unfounded. Fox News' Sophia Periconi is in Nevada, where doctors say they saw a jump in organ donations.
Initial concerns over organ transplants and COVID-19 proved wrong.
We were able to facilitate a record number of donations and transplants across the country, and that included here in Nevada.
Joseph Ferreira with the Nevada Donor Network says while the screening process for donations changed because of the pandemic, the state more than tripled their transplantation rate. He says they focused on the benefits of giving patients a better and longer shot at life.
The major places in which the pandemic has affected organ donation and transplantation has a lot to do with how we screen potential donors and how we look at potential recipients and the risk that the pandemic might pose to them receiving their life-saving transplant.
Dr. Sunil Patel with UMC's Center of Transplantation says their average number of kidney transplants rose from 45 to 154 last year. He says they have staff working at all hours, ready to accept and review organs from across the country to save as many lives nearby as possible.
It was almost 3 times what was done in the past. This year, we've already finished around 105 transplants.
The hospital did pause live donations during the first and second waves of the pandemic, but through proper protocols, doctors managed to continue with donations from those who had passed.
We calculated the net benefit of transplant in the time of a pandemic for the patients and realized that most patients would actually do well if they got transplanted versus waiting and discarding organs.
And now, over a year later, and for certain patients, the hospital is even transplanting donations from those who have had COVID-19 in the past, something they weren't sure would have been able to happen so soon.
We make sure that there is a benefit to this patient in terms of his survival from getting the kidney transplant, and that the risk of having long-term consequences or even dying from using an organ that was previously exposed to COVID is really low.
The demand for traveling nurses continues to surge across the nation. In Arizona, some hospitals are doubling pay and benefits to attract them. Fox News' Nicole Garcia has details.
Specifically in the state of Arizona, we've seen that their volume of physicians just in the last year have increased almost 200 to 300%.
Staffing agencies say there's high interest among out-of-state nurses and respiratory therapists in working here in the Southwest.
We are seeing applications come through for Arizona-specific candidates that are looking for the Arizona, New Mexico area and actually want to go experience that type of lifestyle or culture.
Currently, Staff DNA's job board shows about 350 vacant positions in Phoenix area hospitals and around 1,200 openings statewide. The demand for travel nurses is as high as the unprecedented volume of patients.
Compounding that is we're seeing increasing call-offs of our staff. So a lot of our staff have young families. So if they or someone in their family has an exposure or gets sick with COVID, they're having to quarantine.
About 3.5% of the workforce at Mayo Clinic, Arizona is travel nurses, and they're still looking to hire even more. Compassion fatigue and burnout has become a real strain for current staff.
Having visitor restrictions, say for patients, just that's not only hard for the patient, but it's an added burden for the nurse then too, right? Because they're that person who is at the bedside. So now they're filling in for the family too.
We are not done yet here on your KOAM News at 9 on Fox 14. And when we return, we are headed over to Ireland and learning how a herd of goats are doing their part to help prevent house fires. That's headed your way in just 2 short minutes. Here's a fun story to wrap the show on. An ancient breed of Irish goats is being pressed into service to help prevent wildfires. 25 of what are known as old Irish goats have been deployed on the hills of one of the Dublin's most affluent suburbs. They are bearded, indigenous, and a breed that have been dwindled to near extinction, and they love to eat the highly flammable vegetation that's in the area. Authorities hope that the grazing will leave the North Dublin suburb of Howth less prone to natural wildfires.
The project focuses on the old Irish goat being reintroduced to Howth Hill to manage the heathland for biodiversity and quality, and also for fire prevention.
Conservationists also hope the arrangement will help the line of small, stocky goats survive. Their ancestors arrived in Ireland about 5,000 years ago. Well, thanks so much for spending some of your Saturday evening with us. We'll see you tomorrow for more KOAM News at 9 on Fox 14. Have a great night and stay safe out there.